Yeah. All right. Yes, welcome everyone. So this work talk is called Dancing Beyond Emotional Reactivity in Relationships. And so I just want to say that and let that kind of land in the space a little bit. And I want to invite you really into your, into this space that's going to be created here. So it's here for, at this point, a little bit less than 2 hours. And so it's a work talk, meaning that it's part of this I will be talking, but really I do want to navigate towards doing some breakout room work and some exercises, something so that you can get into an experience of what I'm going to be talking about. So with that, I just want to acknowledge some hazards of this space. And I want to let you know that because it's part workshop space, there's a chance that you will feel something. You'll feel something other than numbness. And which may not sound extraordinary to some of you. I know that, we've all had experiences together, either in the real world or on other calls. And so, but for many people, that's like, wait, what, a feeling? Like a real feeling, really? It can be the sort of thing that can produce what in possibility management we call a liquid state. Like, really, a liquid state is really, it's this transformative state. It's a place that we go into. It can be confusing, disorienting. Life can kind of seem flipped upside down. And because possibility management is really about direct experience, it's possible for our worldview to just get flipped upside down. So if you're not okay with that sort of thing and like doing experiments like that, it's okay to leave now. I won't hold it against you in any way, but I just want to let you know that that's where we're going. So, yeah. And one more hazard that I want to acknowledge is what we call in possibility management gremlin. So, just imagine you're walking through a forest. Like there are things to be careful of in the forest. Like there are real dangers in the forest. And if you're aware of them and how to handle yourself in the forest, then you can stay safe. You can be aware of the cougars or the wolves or the lions or the tigers or the bears. And it doesn't mean that it's without risk, right? So gremlin is one of these hazards, is one of these risks. And gremlin is the part in each of us which can be just like cause chaos in a space, in our own lives. And despite our best efforts, in being the kinds of humans that just really want to create beauty in the world and in our lives, like gremlin is a part of us and part of each person. Sort of, it's the part that undoes our well-laid plans and starts little fires off in the corner and causes disruptions. So I want to let you know that gremlin's not bad. We'll be exploring the idea and the experience of gremlin a little bit in this space, but it's also it's not okay to have gremlin off leash, like in this time together. And so I'm wondering if everyone is okay with that and receiving some feedback about your gremlin throughout this call.
I'm scared.
Okay, so thumbs up. Very good. Nice. Which part of you is scared?
I don't know, like unleashing my gremlin in a group of people. I'm not sure. I guess the one that is excited a bit, I have to say. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Did you say you're scared to unleash your gremlin?
Yeah. Well,
Okay,
Because
so
you mentioned
yeah.
something about like leaving your gremlin like space to just roam. Is that what you said, or did I pick
No,
up?
no, and this is
Oh,
an
no,
amazing thing
no.
because
Okay.
I think that your gremlin likes to confuse things
Okay.
because it sounds like there's a
Okay.
little bit of a gremlin laugh going on for you right now. So what I said was
Hmm.
the exact opposite of what you heard. Is that
Okay. All
this is
right.
a space for keeping your gremlin on a leash.
Okay. All right.
And it's okay if you don't know exactly what that means right now. But yeah. So the idea is basically we're made up of parts and we're all part gremlin. And gremlin is not bad, but gremlin's kind of like, I mean, if you look out in the world, the main kind of leader that is empowered in modern culture is a gremlin leader. So it's this irresponsible part of us that just is, it's like we live in this culture. It's an adolescent modern culture. It praises adolescent maturity, and the kind of people who are really rising through the ranks in most of the hierarchies in the culture are these gremlin, these irresponsible leaders who will just like do whatever it takes to gain power.
Hmm.
So we're looking to create a different kind of space, and we're looking to call on
Hmm.
like different parts of you than gremlin, basically, to be in the space.
Hmm.
And so gremlin can be like a noble dog if you build a relationship with it, and if you keep it on a leash at your side, you know,
Hmm.
if you build a relationship with it.
Hmm.
But yeah, we don't. This is not a space for letting them off the leash and climb up the walls and shit on the rug and all of this, as gremlins
Hmm.
love to do.
Hmm.
So yeah, that make more sense now.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. So dancing beyond emotional reactivity in relationship. So I'll start with the talk part, a bit of the talk part, and we'll navigate towards the work part in a little bit. So I chose the word dance for this work talk because I've noticed in my relationships, whether it's romantic or creative or um, you know, of platonic friendship, that's, and I noticed this most strongly in my partnerships of the past, is that there have been moments where the relationship has felt like a dance. It's felt like a timeless flow. Like I entered into this experience that was a gift. Like I couldn't have designed it. I couldn't have said that is what I want. It was like the space opened up, and there we were together, and we were giving each other everything that we wanted, and it was just kind of ecstasy in a way. And I noticed that over time, those experiences, they fell flat or they didn't happen anymore. And it was enormously painful to realize that, like it's not happening anymore, and why not, and I want it, and why is it like this instead now. And in the times that I've been on a dance floor in my life, and I've really wanted to, I've been in a state of really a similar state as that, you know, of flowing, and everything makes sense, and my body is moving either with a person or by myself on this dance floor. I've had these experiences of, oh, something just isn't quite right. It comes to a stop. I'm frozen inside. I don't want to dance. And so I chose this word because I've noticed that really it is the emotional reactivity in various forms that puts a halt to the dance in relationship. And I have this question, and it's a question because I'm not a master of this, but this feels, it's such an important place I feel I need to explore more, and I want to explore with others like you. How do I enter back into the dance? Like with myself or with others? Like what stops the dance? How is it that I could let this fall apart? Or how is it that, like, why are they getting in the way of my dance? Like, and I think that, yeah, so in modern culture, the game that is played most in, you know, the media we are most often given, it's what we call in possibility management low drama. It's this victim, persecutor, rescuer drama that is played out in all sorts of scripts, and it comes down to basically complaining, arguing, trying to get the upper hand, trying to be right, making the other, like, being right is more important than actually maintaining connection and contact in relationship. So, but this is about this space here tonight. This is about doing something different than that. And so, like really what I want to look at tonight is what is really happening beneath the surface in those moments. And it takes, I think, a kind of courageous and ruthless honesty in a way to explore this topic together. And I want to acknowledge too, just as we're approaching, like, exploring this today, there's a lot of pain around this. There's a lot of emotional pain around this, I think, in each of our stories in life. You know, for me as a man, I grew up believing that I need to not have pain really about anything, but especially around, you know, romantic relationships, having sadness or fear around relationships. I thought was like the least sexy thing that I could possibly do in a relationship. Like, oh, that's going to be actually expressing what I really feel. That's going to kill my relationships immediately. And yet they died anyways. It's really, I think, because I was ignoring that part. So I want to acknowledge that basically, like, this is a space where it's okay to basically to feel feelings and of course it's easier to say that sometimes than to do it, but that's the space, that's where I want to go together, basically. So I'll ask this question, and I don't need you to ask the answer right now, but just to take it in and to consider it a little bit. Like, how does the dance stop? How does that, you know, how has that stopped for you? And even you can just close your eyes and just sense back. If you can sense back, and it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship, because this dynamic happens across all the whole spectrum of relationships. But if you sense back into a moment where something special was happening in a connection, and then something changed. And it began to change in a way where it became not what you wanted. And even as you're sensing into this, like, and it's okay if clear images or clear memories aren't coming back, that's okay. There's no right or wrong around this, but I'm just inviting you to sense into visceral sensations inside of you? Feelings of, was there anger, sadness? Was there fear? Was there joy? And so what caused the dance to stop? There's no rush on this or anything, but if anybody has a sense of something, if they if you're touching on something and you want to share.
I always have it where my inner dancer stops dancing. So like the dance in the beginning is a dance between, but it begins within. And then when I'm like attached to the dance outside, like I feel like I lose my partner or I lose the motion, I get lost inside. And it's not until I like become reattuned with my inner lover or my inner union or my connection with existence itself that I start to feel that flow. And I get attached to what I thought the flow was or how deep I feel within myself. Sentimentality with life itself. And usually the moment I become attached or interested, that's what I noticed. But.
So just to repeat back, so
Yeah.
So when you become attached or interested, is like the dance that was going on in you starts to slow down or stop at that moment?
It's not even really about that. It's like what comes up to me is like the emotions were despair. Like when I notice it, it's what I perceive as the inevitable because of the pattern that I noticed. And it's the moment that I begin to have my emotional sentimentality be shown to other people. And if they react in rejection or the polarization of disgust, then my dance that I'm sharing from, like where it's coming from, the emanation of love, you know, begins to feel disassociated and scattered. And I grieve not being able to feel back in that center again, you know?
How is that for you on the inside? Like, how is that? Because it sounds like it's something that this is an experience you've had more than once. Is that right? Like this is kind of, has this happened more than once for you?
Oh yeah, since I was born.
Yeah.
So for me, what I've learned to do to cope is to observe my identification process of thought forms, experience, see where I'm internalizing my identity in response to the other, you know, whatever that other may be. And then that's what I can do. But it's something that I noticed is like the moment I become really clear that I love someone and I'm really just, and it's coming from within me. It's like, you know, I noticed that people usually, you know, become scared or become violent or react in a certain way. And then I get really scared and I kind of run to go hide in myself, but then I can't find my center. And instead I'm left with a bit of a dissociation. And it's not until I find my inner dancer and physically dancing has helped me do this, where I can find this connection with something deep within me that feels connected to everything around me. And when I find that again, I remember, oh, this is where it was coming from.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. So just as an aside, Tasia is wanting to enter and I want to let her in. Anybody have any resistance to that? I'm not going to repeat everything that I've said, but we'll just, okay, cool. Great. So hopefully this. Hello, Tasia. Hello? Can't hear you right now, Tasia. Hello? Hello, welcome. So just to let you know, Tasia, we're on a moving train right now. So we're in the heart of it, and we're just going to keep going. But we're just sharing about, well, you'll pick up on it. So does anybody else have a experience they want to share of when and how the dance stopped for them? Yeah, Christopher.
I noticed it stops, or we start looking at each other when I stub somebody's toe with my foot, or they step on my toe, and then we look at each other. In that second, it stops. And
so are you talking about a physical dance right now?
No, it's just a metaphor to say, like, when I'm dancing with someone or I'm with someone, something happens that creates pain, either in me or in the other person, and at that point everything freezes a bit.
So I want to, yeah, thank you. And I want to ask, can you share like it sounds a little bit theoretical for me when it's like I wonder if you have an experience or a story for you that's isn't so general, but something specific. And how's it really happened for you? Like, I'm really curious to hear how this is for you inside, and how it's gone, your experience in life. And we can always come back to you if you're not ready. We can come back.
Yeah, I don't think I'm ready to go into the details. I
can share something.
Yeah, you can always come back, Christopher. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's good.
Cool, man. Okay, thanks.
Sometimes I feel when that happens, I get like a body reaction of like contracting in fear of something the other person said reminded me of the past, and I just am afraid of being hurt or of and it's not necessarily the situation in the present itself, but it's also like lots of the past that is like flooded in the present, and that stops everything.
Mm-hmm. And can you tell me more about, like, how does that happen? Like, the thing from the past, what's it like for you? Like how does the stopping happen?
It's like a physical body reaction. Mm-hmm. of like, I want to stop and run away right now to protect myself.
Yeah, I hear you. Thank you. Nicole, is there anything from your side of the circle?
Yeah, I can think of so many different scenarios. In one case, there had been kind of a growing sense that who the person was relating to when they were relating to me was not actually me. It was like, they'd say things like, oh, you probably want to do this, or they'd give me gifts that I'd look at and go, how did it ever how did you ever get the idea that this is something that I would want? And then I just started, I didn't know how to talk about it. Like, I didn't know how to, I'd kind of try different ways of saying like, what does this mean? Like, how does this, who do you think I am? Like, and then it would usually trigger defensiveness or something. And then we get into this kind of back and forth of, oh, you, and just kind of like kill off the vibes, kill off the dance music, metaphorically.
Mm-hmm.
Other times there were things that the person asked me for, and I was a no. And because I was a no, they just, like, the whole relationship was now a no.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And there were other times where something was asked of me and I said no, and they kept trying to change my mind about it until I was like, stop. This isn't, I said no already. And then they kind of made me bad about that or wrong about that.
Mm-hmm.
Or sometimes like something happened and when I described what had happened for me, they told me, no, that's not what happened. You did this, you thought this, you wanted this. And I was kind of like, who are you talking about? And they were so set on their story about me that again, I just couldn't find a way to get to keep the connection, because there was an argument about what was true.
Mm.
Yeah. And I definitely, my first girlfriend who I really, I don't know if it was love, but back then it was maybe infatuation, it was attachment, but something really beautiful was happening there, even amidst whatever the young love, all the confusion that can come with that. I remember it's so painful this part in me that I will now I use the vocabulary of gremlin, which Tasia may sound strange to you, but I was talking a bit before you came. This part of me that is ruthless, is willing to destroy everything and just create chaos. If it doesn't get its way, this part reared its ugly head, and it was willing. That part of me was willing to throw fireballs, and it just wanted the humiliation, the shame I was feeling inside of myself of this relationship crashing and burning around my ears to stop. And it had in its had in its sights, oh, it's this other person is the thing I have to blast out of my way in order to feel some kind of normal again.
Mm.
And that was, I grieved for several years, like that, the pain of that falling apart, really. And so, and I think it is really painful. I think a lot of people really have this kind of experience of the resentments, like being allowed to build up and not having a means for communicating about feelings along the way. And yeah. So it's like, and there's, in possibility management, part of this work talk is like, we do have clarity around these different forms of reactivity and how they function. And at the same time, I don't want to rush into that, because I think there's value to even just being in this space of acknowledging the pain together a little bit, So anyway, like Christopher or Tasia, like if either of you have anything to share, totally welcome right now. No expectations, but if there's anything.
If Tasia hasn't anything, I have something. So yeah, connected to what I was sharing before, and what you just said, no expectations. Well, I think that the moment where the dance stops is when I find out that not in that moment, but as with awareness, I find out that we have two different expectations of how the course of our interaction is supposed to go. And
would you be, Christopher, sorry, would you be willing to use I statements? It helps me to feel a little bit more connected to you.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, it feels, well, when I realize that we have two expectations, really, that's already like a good point in the awareness of the dancing and the relationship. But when it stops, it's mainly because I guess unconsciously I feel like we don't have the same expectation, and then I'm trying to either run away from it or fighting to unconsciously get my own expectation met, and because I think that that's what I need. And so yeah, the point where I see that there's two expectations going on, and I think that's already like a leap forward to the dance stopping. So probably that's already when it could start up again. But I suppose that it's just sheer unconsciousness, is just reacting through unconscious patterns, emotions, and like you mentioned, the train, it just goes, and I'm just on the train, and I don't know I'm on the train, but I am. And so, but yeah, so it's it's pretty sad but realizing that it's sad that there's two expectations that are not being met, and also realizing that it's okay that the other person has another expectation, and it's okay that I have a different. It's okay that we got to the point where we didn't know that we had different expectation. We didn't talk about it. We didn't communicate this. We didn't share about how we expected things to go. So
yeah, just to pick up on that thread, thanks, Christopher. And like, if we're gonna call it whether the unconscious train, let's say, really, I'll just say all this reactivity stuff that we're going to be exploring through the call. It's like it is in the sort of unconscious side of things, there is a possibility of being with one another in a different kind of state, in a kind of present state where there is raw honesty. And it's not to say that it's not to say that, it's possible to live some enlightened life without any kind of reactivity. That's not what I'm selling here. It's like what I'm wanting to open up in this space is really, there's this different way to practice being together, to practice being with one another and being in contact that includes the vulnerability. And I would say like a key point is practicing like dismantling expectations, dismantling the kind of forms of reactivity that are associated with expectations. And there's this word that I mentioned earlier, resentment, and I wanted to just explore that a little bit more right now, because resentment, there's kind of this science to resentment. So resentment starts with expectations. You know, I expect things ought to be a certain way. But then I add another step, and all this tends to happen unconsciously, by the way. So I expect things should be a certain way, and then I believe that my expectations are true. And then if this other person does not meet my expectations of how I think things should go, then that's where I pull the trigger on the resentment. I'm right, they're wrong. I blast them out of the water. You know, I'm justified in whatever kind of reactivity I'm allowed. And when I say I, you know, really this is like gremlin stuff. This is, you know, we've all got different parts and we're all part gremlin. So even if one part of us really wants to stay in contact, sometimes like if the gremlin is unconscious enough, if the pattern is deep enough, it'll just roll right through and do its work, do what it wants to do. So it's really like, you know, I want to offer, no one can stop you from holding like a space of compassion for yourself around this. This is not me coming in and saying, hey, you're doing it wrong. You know, you're fucking up or you're wrong and shame on you. No, this is painful stuff. And I found that the only way to really take steps towards shifting is first create that space of self-compassion and start observing in detail, like, how does this stuff work in me? And simply through observing it, it starts to kind of come apart a little bit. And then the part in me, like my being, can start to be the part I can give my voice to more and more. Yeah, and that is, I mean, just to share a little bit personally, like my past couple years has been a real, you know, it felt kind of like I've been dragging through the mud for a lot of it. Like my partner she's an Indigenous woman, and she's had several deaths in her, many deaths in her family. It's a very common thing for Indigenous people. And as a person born into modern culture of colonial descent, very small family, it's just like been so out of my experience. And it's been really, really tough. And I've seen so many of these patterns in me of like expectation building and resentment, and like just ways that I've, you know, my gremlin has tried to destroy things. And it feels like I feel happy because through that I have been finding something deeper coming through, something that wasn't happening in those earlier relationships in my life. So anyways, I'm wherever you're at, I don't know, but wherever you're at, I'm on your team. So
I got some questions. Navigating expectations versus standards and needs. Because like I have this pattern where I try to come into the overview and speak my standards prior to engagement to, you know, because I'm responsible for my level of engagement with the many interactions. So I try to let the alliance know that this is what I require in order to maintain that alliance, or, you know, and I tend to manifest behavior from people that is not okay with me, that I've spoken about that is not okay with me, that I don't condone, and I don't condemn, but I don't condone. And then I get met with kind of what feels like the story of them thinking I have expectations, you know? And it's hard for me because I have like pain that arises around that, like almost like a gaslighting pain, like I'm not even allowed to have what I've asked to have in order to have the engagement. And then I feel like I'm blamed for my level of engagement. Do you know what I mean? I feel like, oh, you're the one who chose to partake in this. And I'm like, yeah, only because I spoke these boundaries and they were agreed upon. And this is my standard, and this is to meet my needs, you know? So I guess, yeah, my question is differentiation of expectation versus standard, boundaries, and needs.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, first off, I just want to say, honestly, I begin with I don't know about all of this. So, and what comes up for me is that trust is a choice. And I wonder if you've been treating trust as a choice for you, or if you've been treating trust as something that others give you and can take away from you, or can manipulate you with. Because like when I hear you sharing it, it all sounds like very reasonable. It sounds like a really reasonable kind of story of like, this is how things are and how I've learned things sort of should be in terms of my needs. And I'm not saying that your needs aren't real. Your needs are real. And sort of like, well, who can stop you from honoring your needs? You know? And yeah.
And who can stop you from negotiating the intimacy that you want?
Yeah. It's a strange thing I face with like what I would call patriarchal conditioning. And the reason why is like, you know, I've experienced quite a bit of sexual violence in this life. And I'm a very articulated and compassionate being. And this has saved me many times, but it's also been bypassed regardless. And I'm the kind of person that has spoken verbal boundaries and has had people disregard and overstep them and then feel entitled to do so. And then meet me with a guard of illusion that I've had to then bust through. I get tired. So I feel like I was a person for a long time where I felt more like my trust was within me and I was responsible for it. And then what happened was I met someone who basically told me that I could go to a deeper level of vulnerability. But that person wound up studying con artists. And my mind completely, my psyche fragmented. And then after that, my closest male connection, very similar experience that almost my life involves. You remember that trust within me, and I do everything I can to cultivate it. But you know, when it comes to trusting reality, it's been something I've had to heal, that I'm still healing.
Yeah, and thanks, Natalia, just for even bringing it into the space right now. And I want to let it be in the space what you've shared. I think there's something I want to get to like soon that I think we'll be able to navigate back to exploring this, if not like in the whole group in like in a breakout room, but just even just for bringing into the space, like let's leave it here. Let's not like move on from it, but let's like leave it in the space as one of the things. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. And yeah, Tasia, I know you came in a little bit late. Yeah, how's it going for you? How's all this being in the space?
Yeah, well, wait, am I?
Got you. I'm right. I'm hearing you.
You guys can hear me? Okay.
Yes.
I'm just noticing that it doesn't switch, like it doesn't show me that I'm on the screen, but I guess you guys can hear me fine.
Yeah, we're good.
Anyways, Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like, Natalia, I can really relate to what you're speaking on. And I think like it's very damaging stuff for this dance, especially when it becomes like so. And I think like the biggest thing that's been in my mind so far today, thinking about this in terms of like a block to emotional intimacy in specific, is kind of like related to that. It's like I've definitely experienced it with the same individuals that I've experienced breaking of boundaries to many different levels. And that's having no room for emotional vulnerability in the first place, or it's like people really treat it like a chore. And I feel like so often people they have this block within themselves where they don't want to even like think there because they have their own pain with it. So when you try to open up that space, they'll give you like the bare minimum time that you can't even like get the whole tip of the iceberg of like your point across, and then they'll jump in and tell you it's this way, and try to like get away from the whole interaction. And I've noticed this to be like a very big pattern within people, all sorts of relationships as well. And I think like that's the biggest block for me, because when you come up against that enough, you just don't even want to get into it, because it's like building this wall around you that you don't want to open up at all because it's not being respected.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that entitled avoidance. Yeah, for sure.
And I do want to acknowledge, like, there's a kind of scope to this call. Like, obviously the scope is limited to what we can do in a call, and one of the things that I feel sad is beyond the scope is sort of fixing the patriarchy, you know, and that's kind of just a pain that is just so huge, and is going to be in the space. The like men, for example, like I was not raised to be what I now identify as a man. I was raised to be a boy, and there's no shortage of men who are living in the world, presenting themselves as men, but really just have no idea, have no capacity to be in presence, and to connect with their feelings. And it's all too often that I hear these experiences of basically we as humans, we become these like kind of like hedgehogs, or like like all the spikes are out. Not saying that there's anything wrong with hedgehogs, but like, okay, I'm gonna send a spike out before the spikes come at me. Like, it's sort of like because it's hurt too many times, and I see that pattern coming. I know what that look means. I know what that whatever. I've seen this game before, and it's like my partner was telling me yesterday about this is an actual dance floor that she was on at some point. There was a guy who was and this is really a story. This is a story both about what I'm talking about the being reactive, but also about where she took a stand for her power, where a guy had been really just like coming up all night, wrapping his arms around her and just being like talking into her ear. And I think it actually happened on a different night. She knew that he was coming, and she felt him behind her, and she said, like, he was 2 feet away, and she said, "No!" And he just backed away and never talked to her again. Like, kind of. So my point is that where I want to navigate with this is that the reactivity serves a purpose, but it isn't effective. It doesn't meet the needs that sort of, it doesn't create, it's possible to create something different. And it's possible to create something different entirely with shifting what's happening inside for you and looking at what is the process by which, you know, I'm holding space for myself, really. Like, reactivity is not holding space. Like, reactivity is playing the other side of a defensive, aggressive game. And it creates certain conditions, and the conditions don't allow for intimacy. So this is a painful thing to look at. Like in what ways am I creating this? In what ways that, you know, am I playing the game of reactivity? In what ways am I making offers that are reactive offers, like offers into this game of low drama? And this isn't about, like, you know, it's not about blaming the victim or anything like that. Like, this is about shifting into, how do I take responsibility and make creative choices that I didn't know were possible, really.
Mm.
So, and I want to start like looking at these, looking at the different forms of reactivity. I want to give you all that first, and then I want to get into some exercises. Is there anything like burning right now to be shared about what I've said at this point, before I go there?
I kind of have something burning a bit, which is that
Yeah.
I'm remembering, you know, while I'm here thinking about the question that you asked about how things have happened for me in the past, I'm kind of remembering getting to this point where what you just said really got through to me finally, where I realized that I was kind of talking about and waiting for and like putting it on other people to do things differently. And then I remember it really hitting me one day where I was like, wait a minute, this is my life. Like, if I'm waiting around for other people to do it differently, like, oh my gosh, like, I need to be the person who does something differently. And it got really scary because it started to really dawn on me how much there was to do differently. And yet, in a way, that's only really one thing, which is the thing you said, which is like hold space for myself, and then, yeah, develop my ability and capacity to not react, to do something else. And I mean, the great thing about it is makes life a really big adventure of learning, because there is so much to learn. And there's times I wish it was more straightforward and simpler and easier. And I guess in a way it does get a little more smooth, but I just think this is so important for people to,
Well,
like, it was such a turning point for me.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and the point is like, this isn't about whatever giving up on wanting the other person, other people to dance with or something like that. Like this is, I can choose to dance. I can choose also to stop the dance just so as to like spite other people or something like that. These are things that are common that we often don't talk about, but like, nobody can stop you from starting to dance again and making new offers, you know, offers for intimacy from a different place. And, you know, there's that, I think it's Buckminster Fuller, or I think this is one of those quotes gets confused about who it's attributed to, but like you don't get new results from trying the same thing. That's basically what it boils down to. It's like trying new things produces new results. So I'm gonna share my screen right now. Hopefully everybody will be able to see it, because I've got some kind of basic notes around different forms of reactivity. And this is distilled from something called, so it's reactivity.mystrikingly.com. These are some key points. So these are different forms of reactivity. So we're all made of different parts. And one of the parts, can I make it bigger? Yeah, I should be able to. Yeah, you're on your phone.
There we go. That's a bit better.
See it now?
Yeah, I can see that now. Thanks.
So this is all really too much information to kind of really like absorb experientially in this call, but I'm gonna share it anyways because it gives some good hints. So we're all made of different parts, and we're all part box. And this is the word in possibility management that we use for, you might call it your ego, but your defense strategy. This is the unconscious game that you play without realizing it, so as to survive. So it's to survive emotionally, physically. It's something that we build up as kids. We learn to react mechanically, really, to situations without even realizing that we're doing it. And it really is mechanical, and we're not meant to live our whole lives identifying with the box, but that's how we're raised in modern culture. So the box has buttons. So, if you grew up with siblings, then you know exactly what it's like to have your buttons pushed. Like your siblings is they know exactly what to do. Just push the button, get a reaction. It's exactly mechanical. And so these are all different forms of reactivity you can learn to distinguish experientially inside of you. Like each one of these feels different. So an example of a button for me is, when my partner leaves the compost just like on the stairs as a hint to me to take it out, and I get this little reaction. It's like little bit of anger each time I see it because it's in my way, and I'm like, I feel like a Pac-Man or something. Like I can't walk past. I have to go around it and I'm in this mode. I'm probably in my thoughts or something like that. But I have this little reaction, and it's totally unnecessary. It's but anyways, it's this example of this mechanical thing. So the procedure for dismantling this button, all of these have different procedures for basically how you can undo the reactivity in you, is to go inside of you and take the button apart. There's different procedures for this, but essentially it comes down to observation. If you observe a button in enough detail, and observe meaning from a part of yourself that is not your box, not from a neurotic place, but really observing it with presence, a different kind of conversation will start to happen. And it might require an emotional healing process too. There can often be emotions fused to these buttons. But it's really it can be painful to take some of them apart. But there's a way to do it. And the point is that it's inside of you, this button. It's not outside of you. Or it's in your box rather. Okay. Then there's this other part,
I have a
this
question
gremlin. Like, yes,
about the button. To
yes.
dismantle a button, is the process different for every button or every person?
It's the same process because it's a mechanical process.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I would like to know more about that process, but it might not be the right time.
Totally. Yeah, I think I'd like to move through this and get some exercises, but I'll see if I can address that. Yeah. So the next is hooks. So like I said, the gremlin, we all are part gremlin, and gremlin's kind of like the active part of your defense strategy. It's like, whereas your box is this kind of dead mechanical thing, your gremlin's really actually energetic, but your gremlin's original purpose is sort of defend your box from dying, defend your survival strategy from being defeated. So your gremlin will, like for me, with my, like I was mentioning, my first relationship, my sense of self was falling apart with all this shame and embarrassment and from that relationship falling apart. My gremlin just wanted to do whatever it could to blast this other person out of the water so I didn't have to face that intensity. So that's what gremlins do, is they send these hooks out to other gremlins to see if they can hook that other gremlin into a battle, into some kind of argument, and some kind of like, I'm better than you, you're worse than me thing. And it just destroys everything. It just gets burnt to the ground, and then nobody has to evolve. Nobody has to, feel a real feeling or be vulnerable. So gremlins love killing intimacy. They just love it. They'll just eat that for breakfast. And there's actually, like, you might notice within yourself, if you're honest with yourself, like there is this joy that comes along with sending out these kinds of hooks. And it might not be your joy, but it's a part of you feels this joy. It's not your being joy, but it is distinguishable as joy, because Gremlin loves having fun. Just watch the movie Gremlins if you want to see an example of gremlin fun. But maybe don't watch it, because we already know how it works. Okay, so, and then another form of reactivity is really traumas. And I mean, they can manifest in different ways, but traumas are these old wounds from our past, and they're doorways to emotional healing processes. That's that's kind of the phrase we use in possibility management to describe like a process of having, like, asking a space holder to hold space for you to go into your past and explore a piece of your history, right, where you made a decision that defined your life in a certain way. And these traumas, like, I mean, it can look so many different ways, but it's often something like a dog barks at you and you just start crying and you shut down and you're shaking for hours. It's a sign that there's a trauma in you that has been unhealed. It's not to say that it's wrong or shameful or anything, but there's a different mode that your body is designed to be in than to be in that kind of, into that really traumatized state. Another example could be, your waiter brings you your soup and it's cold and you just start yelling at them, just like you're red in the face and you're seething for days afterwards. I mean, this is also often an example of a trauma. It can be something different sometimes too, but simply say that for now. So voices, voices live in your head, and they can come from different sources. Like it can come from an external authority, it can come from your past. Most of the voices that live in our heads tend to come from our parents, if we have parents, or like, you know, our central role models growing up, our central disciplinarians, you know, or like teachers that we had. And they're, you know, they live in the head, and they tend to kind of float around the head. And they tell you, you know, if you're identified with these voices, then you do what they say. You think that those are your voices, but they aren't coming from inside of you. They're not coming from your own center of authority. They're coming from outside or from the past. So the way to deal with this form of reactivity is to, you know, on your tool belt, you've got this tool belt with all these tools. You've got this little voice blaster, and you pull that off and you go, bang! Bang! You just shoot that voice wherever you are, even if you're standing in line up at the salad bar. You just take that off and shoot the voice as soon as you hear it. Don't let it, and just be ruthless. And it's not gonna, you know, it's just gonna go where those voices go when they die. It's like, it's gonna have a nice peaceful death, but it's going to die, and that's where it needs to go, because it's not your voice. I mean, you can choose to continue living through other people's voices, but I don't recommend it. In my experience, it's not what true living is like. So, and you know, an example of one of these voices, how it can manifest, is really like, Natalia, I think you might be chopping vegetables. Can you just mute yourself if you're doing that?
I'm sorry, but I have to make supper. I'm still listening to everything. Is there a question for me?
I was just asking if you can mute yourself so we don't hear the chopping.
Oh, okay. I can definitely do that. Yeah.
Cool, thanks.
Where's the mute button? Mute button.
Thank you. So an example of the voices manifesting would be like, I mean, it can be similar to the box, but in my experience, it is different. So it's like, oh, you know, hey, let's go and run and jump off that cliff into the river. Oh, I don't know. That sort of thing is really dangerous. You know, that sort of thing, you can really get hurt. No, we don't. I don't do that. I don't do that sort of thing. Well, okay, where's that voice coming from? I'm not saying you should go and jump in every river you get in, but that you're on the edge of. But those voices can often come from mom or dad or whoever from my past who I used to give my authority away to. Yeah. And then physical imbalances it's helpful to distinguish that you know, what I've talked about so far, this is energetic body stuff or emotional body stuff. And the physical body can have imbalances of its own that are distinct from these that I've mentioned. So basically, it's there to say, like, take care of your body, take care of all of your bodies, your emotional body, your energetic body. Nobody can take care of your bodies for you. And but be aware that sometimes what you need is food for your physical body, and that will bring balance to the other bodies in a different way. So, yes, Tisha.
Did you cover triggers? Okay. I must not have been.
Oh, you know what? Oh, I did not. No, I didn't. Thank you. I must have just skipped right over it. It might be that there's something for me to look at in that. My box is making me ignore it. So a trigger is a phrase that basically, it lives inside of you. You repeat it to yourself, and it opens up a doorway inside of you. It's like there's a, you know, the experience can be like having a bunch of vampires just come in and suck your energy out of you. and you spiral into this kind of depression, this depressive state, and I'm not saying that energetic vampires are real, but I'm not saying that they have been proven to not be real either. In any case, it's more about just talking about the experience. That's so an example would be like one of the trigger voices that's often repeats for me is fuck you. Sort of like I'll have some kind of memory come up of that I haven't done an emotional healing process for, or I haven't dismantled the button, and it'll just sort of repeat inside my head, and I'll go into this dark place for a little bit. And there's a procedure for this basically, which is, I think it's covered in an article, Spark 135. It's a procedure for closing the doors of a cafe. It's basically observing these phrases. I don't have it. This is actually something I want to work on more myself with this one. So I don't have it deeply internalized, but it's closing the doors of these phrases. Closing the doors to the feeding frenzies that these vampires stop feeding on you, basically. And again, I would say like self-observation, presence with that one, recognizing that it's happening, and then just stopping, letting those triggers live inside of you, those trigger phrases live inside of you. And I realized too in this moment that I didn't go over Gremlin, like how to be unhookable. So other gremlins will send you hooks. Gremlins just do what gremlins do, and so there's different energetic tools that you can use to be unhookable, practice being unhookable. So it can help to even just visualize, like, again, this takes practice. It takes practice to recognize like to even identify, oh, this is this person's gremlin in front of me and they're trying to hook me. But I don't think it takes too much training. For example, like in spaces I've held like this, occasionally I'll have somebody's gremlin the person will be really uncomfortable because we're talking about something that you might actually feel something about, and they'll like make a really gross joke or something like that. And they don't realize it, but it's their gremlin trying to hook the other gremlins in the room into some form of reactivity, trying to make them laugh, basically destroy the space. Because this is an extraordinary space. We're talking about extraordinary things, and gremlins hate being found out because then the game's up. So again, on your tool belt, you've got these different tools. You can use what's called a purpose sniffer. And it's this little, you take it off your tool belt, and it's got a little like pump on it, and attached to the pump is a nose. So you just like squeeze it and it goes, and you can sniff out what the purpose is of this person, what they said, So, their purpose is just the purpose of what they're doing right now is to destroy the space right now, or it's to try and create some sort of right-wrong dynamic in this conversation. Okay, well, I'm just not going to play that game. You don't have to say any of this, but you just sniff it. Okay, that's what they're doing, right? And then you take this other energetic tool off your tool belt. It's called a disc of nothing. And this isn't imagination stuff. Like, really this is a function of your energetic body. This disc of nothing, it's about that big. And it's gold on one side, and on the other side, it's just nothingness, pure nothingness. So when you take it off your tool belt, it just kind of floats in front of you, between you and the other person. And when their gremlin sends a hook, this thing is magnetized to hooks. So the hook just goes right into the disc of nothing. And it just goes, it can't attach to anything, and it doesn't land in you. And so this, in my experience, this works extraordinarily well. It's just the hooks just don't work anymore. The hooks just come in, and you have to really be in your center to be able to do this. You have to be present. You have to be aware of what's happening. You know, if you're doing drugs or alcohol or this sort of thing, it just totally, totally destroys capacity, in my experience, to like sense these subtle things and really, but it's amazing. It's amazing when I've seen like the person's gremlin, their faces all doing its gremlin thing in some way. And it just, when I've been unhookable in the presence of a gremlin like that, it's amazing just to see it kind of fade away. They kind of walk away. They go and try and start a gremlin thing with somebody else. And it really works. So this is all to say that, each of these really require a call for a deeper examination and a deeper sense of deeper reflection within oneself to really see how this works and really start to take this apart. But each of these will stop the dance of intimacy from starting within you every single time, if they're allowed. And, it's so easy. It's because in modern culture, we aren't taught these things. We aren't given the clarity of, oh, these are the different kinds of reactivity. It seems so often the only choice is to stay in survival, stay in reactivity, just kind of bear with it and try and keep ourselves together. But something else is possible, and really starting to take apart these forms of reactivity is what can lead to that, really like allow the dance to open up again. So I'll post these notes in the chat, and I'll also post the website that they come from, so in case you want to look a little bit deeper into it. But yeah, I do want to do an exercise around this, but there was a lot that I said there too. So is there anything coming up right now?
What about because I've had it before where people's gremlins are acting out at me, or ogres or whatever I could see in them, like super reactivity and just tantrum throwing, really.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've noticed is that it's like they feel justified in it because they've seen my gremlin. And it's like this gremlin hall of mirrors, like projection, like a projection deflection. Mm-hmm. And then I don't even know how to go into that overview, because I try to bring the nothingness, mm-hmm. and even they're taking that personally. So I've gone through that. So then I go to then what? Then what?
Yeah. I mean, thank you. And, it's kind of like it's gremlins all the way down in a way. It's like, I get it it's hard to get the overview sometimes. It's hard to kind of step back and be in the meta conversation around it. I mean, some people, like we talk in possibility management about ego states. So there's a map of different ego states. One is the child ego states, one is the parent ego states. Those are sort of the ego states that we're we first learn about. It's this, I'm dependent to you and you're dependent to me. But there's the possibility of the adult ego state. It's this part where in us, where like really we're connected to our beings, we're connected to purpose, we're connected to responsibility. Responsibility isn't a bad thing. It's not a big heavy burden. It's like I can live in the world and play all out with purpose, connected to my life, and create what I want to create. Like it's part of how we're meant to live as humans. And then there's also the gremlin ego state, which possibility management has distinguished, which and the way this works is that actually even if a person kind of leaves the child ego state, you know, their adult ego state can be enmeshed with the gremlin ego state, or it can be enmeshed with the child, or both. Or there's another one called the demon ego state, which is just not going to get into here, but you know, and so if a person's deeply enmeshed in their adult and gremlin is deeply enmeshed, they cannot really be in adult relationships. And so this is something really for you as feedback. If you're trying to establish adult contact with somebody who's deeply enmeshed with their gremlin, just get ready for more gremlin battles, really. So not I guess the good news is not everybody is like that, and there is a gremlin decontamination process you can kind of go through, and you know, to start to separate those. And I mean, unfortunately, it just kind of means that some friendships fall apart, because I mean, you can kind of decide what you're up for really in a relationship. I'm not available for that sort of thing. But,
me neither. That's why they've all fallen apart.
yeah, and you know, in the breakdown, a different kind of doorway can open up, and it's kind of like, okay, ending up in, it's like a dark hall, and there's two doorways, and one is like the same thing over again, and one is, okay, expansive learning, the next step, my next step. And that next step is, you know, often it is a more painful step than doing it all over again. And it's doing it all over again will continue again and again until it becomes more painful to keep doing it again than it is to take the next step. Yeah. It's kind of the bad news, but also the good news.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do want to do at least one of the exercises that I had planned. and also I feel glad that even just being in this exploration, like without the exercises, is seeming rich. So okay. So we're going to go into, let's see. We're going to go into pairs. And when you get into a pair, please first, everyone, if you can copy and paste the note that I made into like a personal tab or something. I don't know if it'll show up in the breakout rooms. I think it might, but just that you have those to reference. So when we get into pairs, each person is going to have 5 minutes to share. And the other person just listens. And what you're going to share about is like, what have I created, like in myself? What of these forms of reactivity do I play out? So this is what we call the poop on the table process. or maybe, or like this, you know, the weapons on the table. This is kind of both at the same time. It's like, what weapons have I been using on others and in relationship that have stopped or frozen the dance of intimacy? Like, so 5 minutes, and I know so you're basically gonna name something that, you know, something you've done, and then try to see, okay, which of these do I think it is? A button, hook, trigger, all these things. And then share a little bit about the cost of that, really what that's caused for you. Oh no, Natalia. Okay. So hopefully Natalia comes back, but and then basically you'll share for 5 minutes, your partner will just listen. And then after that 5 minutes is up. Okay, she's coming back in. Okay, so Natalia was just saying that one person shares, and then after that 5 minutes is up, for 3 minutes, the partner is going to basically reflect back, reflect back what they heard, and explore with curiosity, like if you have any questions for the other person, and also really if you have any further like feedback, basically like, oh, you know, you said this, but it actually sounds like it's more like this. Like if you have any extra hints for this other person. So any questions about this? Okay.
How long do you have as the reflector?
3 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll go out for one round, and then we'll come back just to check in that there is nothing confusing or anything.
And then
we'll go
switch.
back. Yeah, we'll switch. Exactly. Okay. Is everyone all right with this? You good to go?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'll just make the breakout rooms. And one of you will have to be the timekeeper, so please just look that up. Okay, I'll see you all back in roughly 8 minutes. All right, you and me, man. You there, Christopher? You're frozen. Oh no. Oh, right.
We're alone.
Okay. I guess we're the first back, or
Yeah, probably.
maybe we're being um, set up to do the next piece. To do your no, okay.
Hi, Nicole.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. So it's your turn to share for the 5 minutes, whatever arises.
We're back in the main space now.
Yeah.
Oh, are we okay? We're just waiting on everyone else. I was like, I don't know what's going on. Okay, we're back in the main space. Good.
All right. So I want to go right back in. Just quickly, any like technical things or any confusion come up? Or are we good to go back in?
It's all good.
Right
I'm
on.
ready.
Let's go. Let's go back. All right. Everyone's back. I feel angry that I feel angry that we're so close to the end and that we haven't gotten through more because I had another exercise I wanted to do. And I'm also glad that we have done what we've done. I do want to hear if there's any jewels. And personally, I'm willing to stay another 5 minutes. No expectation. If you've got to go right at 8, that's fine. But just to even be in the same space, and I'd love to hear some jewels of what was received in that experience.
I definitely appreciate the reflection. You know, like sometimes people sharing their experiences reflect aspects of ourselves that are unheard. And it's not until they put words to their experience that like you can kind of see something in yourself, like through relating. That's kind of a key. So I had a bit of that experience where it's like, oh wow, like I totally see myself in this person, but in a different way, you know, in a different part of that reflection, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Totally. How was it for you in terms like sharing?
So
Like, was it?
I guess mine was around assuming people's boundaries. Mm-hmm. Oh, what was it like sharing?
Yeah.
I mean, it was fairly easy, definitely. I felt that I learned more in listening than I did sharing. But I don't know, it's like usually when I'm sharing, I'm noticing a part of myself that's judging myself. So maybe that's my why I feel sometimes I learn more from listening. But yeah, just mainly around the inner outer mirror, you know. She was sharing something about her inner reflection, and it kind of brought me a different perspective to something that I had to see as well. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, any other jewels?
Yeah, my jewel is noticing how I view my gremlins first than the other person's gremlins, or how another person when talks more about other people's gremlins or his own gremlins. And that to me is like, whoa, it helps me, it kind of makes me think, okay, so maybe I'm thinking too much of my gremlins instead of like pushing it a bit more and balancing when interacting with people. So yeah, I know it's just in this moment that's I find interesting.
Thank you.
Something that I found that really was really helpful for me that Teja said was about taking things personally and like becoming offended. And I'm realizing that that is a choice to become offended by something that someone does. And yeah, I want to explore that more.
It's interesting because in a way, like that's like the message that you got from what I said, but in my mind it hadn't like fully formed as that. And that's like a lesson for me as well, in the sense of you just saying that and like the next kind of piece of the deeper meaning of what I was saying, if that makes sense. Because often when we're speaking and giving reflection, we can do that because of personal experience. So in this way, we can just like easily collaborate with our different perspectives and give each other these missing pieces, I think.
Something that I'm really like kind of basking in from doing that breakout is just how like out and about in the world, so often when I'm engaging with people in my in-person life, they're like, we don't talk about this stuff. And to come here and there be like 6 of us who are all kind of like, yeah, this is what's happening. Like these things are kind of constantly happening in most interactions. And just that sense of like not being alone, and that this is just part of the human condition, and gives me like a sense of like oh, it's okay, it's just part of being human, and I don't have to beat myself up so much.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks everyone. And I mean, there's this whole other side to this that is the dance of beings, really. And I feel sad because I wanted to do another exercise around around letting the being speak more. And you know, this is just I think it's just such a vast topic. It's just we can only get so far in 2 hours. Because it has to kind of integrate. But even being aware of these different forms of reactivity, like I've really noticed that being aware of them inside myself, and that like ultimately I'm the one who chooses whether I keep that button constructed in me or if I deconstruct it. Like I'm the one who chooses if I'm sending out a hook, and I do have to like build the skill to be able to notice that, but I'm the one who gets to choose. And it's like there's a part of me with each of these different forms of reactivity that where there's a payoff. There's a part of me that I'm getting something from it. And so what happens if I take it apart? Like, what is the cost? Like, what feeling or emotion comes up if I start taking those things apart? Where does that lead? And what I've noticed is that, I mean, it leads to more feeling. Often it leads to some kind of a liquid state of like, now who am I without these defenses? Now who am I without these strategies? But it also creates the possibility, it sort of clears the dance floor for something else, to like a different kind of offer. So I want to let you all know that I am planning on doing a series about this. Like this is like a little a work talk, an initial work talk, and that's in a couple weeks. I'll be offering a 4-part series. It'll basically like 4, 2.5 hour time, slots with like where we'll be getting deeper into this territory, getting deeper into the heart of this, and looking at like how like deeper about how does this work in me, but also like how to let my being start to speak again, how to establish contact with others and begin creating extraordinary intimacy, and being in a team space like this where it's we're going deeper. And yeah, if any of you want to come, who've come to this first one, you'll get a little discount for that too. So just letting you know, and if you do come, that's awesome. I'd love to have you there. If you don't, there's lots of other ways to be like connected with possibility management, including I do a Sunday possibility team for free, and Nicole does a Thursday possibility team for free, and Brianne, I don't know if you're doing anything yet. Are you doing anything right now?
I do 3 times a week, 333 on Rage and Fear on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
Yeah, so possibility management, we do a lot of feelings work. So it's like a practice space for going into anger and fear, but which might be a little bit like of a jump for you, but maybe you really want that, and it's awesome to like just do that. But and then also I think that we'll be doing, well, actually, we're all living in the place now known as Canada here, interestingly enough.
Yes.
All the Americans that signed up for this tonight were like doing something else. So,
Yay.
so that's cool. So we'll be offering more things within the Canada context too, in like different forms. So I hope that you all stay in touch, and just like, yeah, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Good to see you, Natalia. Good to meet you, Taya. Good to see you, Christopher and Brianne. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
Taya, just before I guess I say goodbye to you, I checked in with everybody else beforehand around recording this, and I just wanted to check with you too. Is it okay that I post this online?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
that's right.
Okay, cool. None of the breakout room stuff is recorded, but just wanted to. Thanks for coming. I don't know if it was where maybe if there was confusion about the start time, but sorry about.
Yeah, I got very carried away fixing my car out there without like a clock.